So the pattern that we're going to be talking about now is the overgiver pattern. And the one thing that I want to emphasize up front is that there is such beauty in this pattern. The overgiver is the epitome of the mother nurturer. You know, the mother nurturer really wants to just give to everyone else. And you can imagine that the beautiful essence of the overgiver pattern is that they're so kind and they're so nurturing and they've got so much compassion for other people. And they, you know, you can imagine with your children, you want to give them the world. And so the overgiver pattern is brought to business, and it brings its own special challenges and it brings its own special benefits as well. So the kind, caring, compassionate, loving, mother nurturing business owner opens up their own business, and all of a sudden people trust them. They've got such an advantage in business because everybody wants to be around them. There's somebody that you can go to business and you can say automatically, this is somebody that I like, this is somebody that I trust, and this is somebody that I feel that I can do business with. So they've got massive, massive advantages. But they've also, in the overgiving pattern, there's definitely the weaknesses or the blind spots as well. And really the weakness and the blind spot in the overgiver pattern is that in overgiving, there's really a tendency that there is no way on this earth that a mother nurturer would ever be selfish. If you can imagine, you know, with your children and even me with my children, that the mere thought of being selfish is just totally sacrilege. Like there's no way you want to be the selfish mother. So you can imagine the business owner that goes and goes to be selfish is absolutely, I just can't do it. There's no way that I could be selfish. And this is things like, you know, I've worked with business owners that have had a dance studio, or business owners that are in the wellness industry, or business owners in the beauty industry. And just simple things like putting prices up is absolutely like, it's a total shock to a business owner that has this overgiver pattern, because they think that it's selfish and that they're not giving enough to their clients. So you can see that it undermines profits, or, you know, underlines the bottom dollar, which to the overgiver, they don't really care. They're there to give. They're there to be of service. They're there to love. They're there to be compassionate. They don't care, you know, this part doesn't care about profits and the bottom line. But the fact of business is that you're there to be a business owner. So it's really the blind spot of being able to develop the businesswoman. You know, I know that I definitely had the overgiver pattern myself, and it's something that I had to really work on to bring that really subjective, really detail-orientated, functionally selfish, I'll say, business owner that's able to drive the business forward and that's able to do things in the business that the overgiver just can't. So it's about compartmentalizing, you know, the overgiver with the businesswoman, so that you don't give too much into too many areas. And one thing for me was definitely with staff as well, overgiving to staff and then being kind of used and abused in a certain way because they know that they can get away with so much. And I'll hand it over to you guys because I'm sure that you've got so much to add to this conversation. It's a really big one.
Yes, one of the key things I think that's important in what you've said, Gab, is the fact that the overgiver pattern, the people with this pattern really, really thrive on the intrinsic rewards. So that warm, fuzzy feeling that they get becomes more important than having to, you know, put prices up or having to spend an extra half an hour with a client, because they're just getting fed on so many levels that it can definitely undermine the business. If you're in a service industry and you've got clients and appointments for certain specific time limits, and you find that, you know, you're into this real connection with the overgiver, you're gonna go over your time. You're either going to not be available on time for your next client, or probably more importantly, because you're probably hopefully smart enough to put space in between appointments, you're not going to give yourself the time that you need to decompress from one client to another. So there's this even a feeling of not needing that, because there's this feeding of warm, fuzzy feelings that we get as overgivers. But it can send the whole business out of schedule. The amount of money that's coming into the business is not relative to the number of appointments that you're doing, or the number of appointments are reduced because you have to make the appointment time longer. You don't want to put up the prices. To me, the key thing in clients that I've been working with an overgiver pattern is they aren't necessarily looking after themselves, except as far as getting those intrinsic rewards. And that really can make this pattern something that is really in the blind spot for a lot of people.
Yes, there's so much to say about this pattern. And burnout, as Georgina's just alluded to, is a big part of it. It's going to whack profit. It's going to whack growth on all sorts of levels. And I think it's really important to say that both men and women can have this pattern. But in my experience, and I can probably say collectively our experience, but I won't because I don't know, but you can see Gab's nodding. It's very strong with female entrepreneurs and business owners because they're already hardwired to nurture. They've got most of them have a big nurturing component. As Gab pointed out at the start of this, thank God for people with a big nurturing part. What they really add to the world, but they suffer in business. And one of the things that I was thinking about as both of you were talking is what I'll see is Gab talked about, sort of being an overgiver with staff and being misused. People with a strong mother nurturer part, if we break this down into what we might call a part of the personality, will often attract people who want to take advantage of that person's kindness. They want to be around them because they're kind and nice. And this will lead to this type of pattern. So you'll have a staff member who is not performing. They're not up to standard, and an incident's happened. So you bring them into your office and you say, "Hey," and they look at you and they flutter their eyes. "I'm sorry, it'll never happen again." And the mother nurturer, the business owner with a strong nurturer or overgiver pattern is going, "Oh, the poor thing. Okay, well, I'll give you some more training." So what we'll often see is someone with a strong overgiver pattern, they'll give too much to staff that aren't performing. And what happens is they take their time away from supporting the staff that should be getting that support. Now, the reason for this is, of course, there's a couple of things. The mother nurturer or the overgiver part goes, "Oh, I really care for this person. I really want them to do well in this business." And then there's another part that says, if you give them a hard time, and excuse the language, it means that you're a bitch or a bastard. How dare you can't treat people like that? Because the overgiver feels guilty at setting boundaries or disciplining staff, because they're so about the other and how the other feels. So they get taken advantage of a lot. They actually get taken for rides. And I'll quickly just share a story. It's a pretty brutal story, but it's a good story that emphasizes this. Two women salon entrepreneurs had been very successful. I think they had about 3 salons at this stage with around 40 or 50 staff. One of their key staff's mother died of cancer. There was a 2-week period where, of course, she was falling to bits as she would, as I would. And, she wasn't particularly great at work, and she did have some time off. But even 2 or 3 months later, when she wouldn't perform, she would blame it on her emotional state. And these 2 business owners that were overgivers were, "Oh, the poor thing." And they came to me and they said, "Well, it's 2 or 3 months, but we just feel like we've got to keep supporting her, but she's actually impacting our profit margins." And this is, as the 2 of you can see, this is just typical of the overgiver pattern. And what was happening was this girl was just taking them for a ride. She'd worked out that it was okay for her to be emotionally indulgent. It was okay for her to not perform because all she had to do was give them a sob story that engaged the overgiver pattern. Same thing with prices, because I know from working with these people that they'll always have people that push their boundaries. So you'll say to someone, "I push the price up," and if you're an overgiver that said, "Look, I'm putting the prices up," a client will go, they'll know, unconsciously know that you're an overgiver. "Oh, I can't afford that," and the overgiver goes, Georgina talked about setting time boundaries. If you're working one-on-one with clients and you're an overgiver, you're going to get clients that know that they're going to try and manipulate more time from you. The last thing I want to say before I hand back to you guys is I think it's really important, something that you said earlier, Gab. There's the mother nurturer part or the overgiver part that cares for others, but business also requires us to utilize the part that has nothing to do with emotion. It's just the analytical, strategic part that says, to achieve that outcome, I need to do these things. Now, some of these things will hurt people, okay? That might hurt some staff, it might hurt some clients. They're going to be upset or put off. And that's one of the central conflicts for someone with the overgiver pattern. They're often their blind spot, and I think this is interesting to say, is they take that strategic part that knows what they should do and they hide it from their own conscious awareness, because they know if they follow that part, they're going to hurt people's feelings and not be liked. So that's also in their blind spot, typically, the strategic part.
Yeah, that's something that, nearly every person that has the overgiver pattern, a large majority of them, that point, Perry, is absolutely central. A lot of them have come to me and they really want to move their business ahead in some way, but because the overgiver is so central to their personality, it's so intrinsically a part of them, they have no idea whatsoever of how to balance that with a business person. The really strategic, logical parts, it is so important to them to maintain that energy of giving and mother nurturer that they just don't even want to fathom the prospect of bringing those business parts in. But with this work, it's really about bringing an awareness to where you are overgiving and that you do have that part of you that feels, keeps calling to you almost to move the business ahead and to grow in some way, and to honor that part and to find ways of them working together without losing the essence of who you are.
That's right, Gab. And in fact, when we really come down to it, this overgiving pattern, what we're actually talking about when someone is overgiving, no matter how it's represented, whether it's spending time with staff or spending time with clients or not charging enough, it's actually, to these people, it's a pattern that is a representation of their love. So that's why it's so deeply ingrained in them. Whatever it is that they're giving is their form of expression of love. And so they really don't want anything that's going to counteract that. And oftentimes conflict, which can arise when they need to get into that business owner and more analytical, less emotional side of things, doesn't want to feel that conflict within themselves around it. So quite an interesting pattern that we can really delve into in a lot of ways, I'm sure.
Yeah, just one thing to finish off, and it's something that I use with the overgiving clients. I use the metaphor of a battery, because there's not one overgiving client that doesn't experience burnout. Now, why do they experience burnout? Because they don't know how to set boundaries. They don't know how to get their own needs met. Because as Gab said before, they would think themselves as being selfish, which is one of the worst things someone with an overgiver pattern can feel about themselves. But selfishness is a wonderful thing when it's used functionally. Okay, so the battery. If a battery gives and gives and gives and gives of its power source, and it doesn't go on recharge, what happens? What happens?
Loses everything.
It goes flat and can't give anymore. So as a business owner with an overgiver pattern, what you've got to look at is what boundaries give me my energy back so I can give again. Okay, so money is a boundary. So if you make more money, that might be less stress. It might mean that you can have more time off. Asking people to do other roles so that you don't have to do them. Getting your team to perform. All these things are boundaries that will give you more energy so that you can go back and give in the way that you like. But if you're not willing to set boundaries about money, putting your prices up, how your staff perform, all your energy will go out and you will be depleted. A depleted overgiver who can no longer give. That's it. The overgiver pattern.